The Komarovo Massacre, written and narrated by Lord Sloth. What you're about to hear is all a true story that occurred on a DayZ server in August of 2020. Today was the day that Komarovo would be liberated. Sloth awoke in the attic of the Komarovo police headquarters, the sound of distant thunder reverberating throughout the walls. Stiff from the 3 hours of sleep he got from lying on the concrete floor, he turned over to check the time, 8:43 a.m. The protest would begin at 11 a.m., and once that time came, Sloth would change Komarovo forever. It didn't have to end this way, especially not at the cost of what would come. His group, the Wild Wimblers, had only lived in town for several weeks up to that point, journeying from far across the wasteland to arrive there. The mayor was welcoming and willing to give his group a building in the town for a reasonable price. It was upon the discovery of one of Sloth's possessions that the dark face of Komarovo's corrupt government would rear its ugly head. Sloth had not thought much of the megaphone that he had found on his journey to Komarovo. He had not much use for it, though one night while drunk, he decided to play his favorite melody, the hamster dance song, in his house, awakening the neighbors and alerting the town police. A warning was given to him that it was illegal to play music audible to the town, and that a further violation of this clause would have consequences. Sloth, though confused at the absurdity of the rule, obliged and believed that that was the end of it. 2 days following this warning, the mayor himself would call Sloth to a meeting in the middle of town. Sloth, confused by his sudden popularity, yet again obliged, wishing not to cause any conflict in the new place he called home. He was, however, suspicious of the circumstances, so Sloth brought along two from his group, Ringo and Stealthy. Sloth was correct in his suspicion. The mayor was flanked by two members of the Komarovo police force, armed with rifles. Luckily, the number of bodies between the groups were even, as if any conflict were to break out, at least the Wimblers could put up a fight. The mayor spoke. "I'm willing to make a trade deal. I want your megaphone." Immediately, Sloth did not like this idea. He had complied with the warning given from the police. Why did they wish to have his possession? "Why?" Sloth asked. "Megaphones are extremely rare to find in the wasteland, but I know you won't give it up easily. That is why I'm willing to give you this." The mayor reached into his pocket, and what he pulled out shocked and disgusted Sloth. "It's Wimbley, your long-lost pet worm. I know you thought him lost, but I found him for you. I will return him to you only for the megaphone." Sloth could not believe what he was hearing nor seeing. Wimbley had died ages ago, a long ways away from Komarovo. Not only this, Sloth knew what Wimbley looked like. This was not him. This was a dead worm carcass that the mayor must have dug up from the ground. "That's not Wimbley," Sloth somberly stated. "Yes, it is. Take the worm," said the mayor. "That's not my worm." "Yes, it is. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Sloth had heard enough. The sheer disrespect he was hearing from the mayor was enough for him to pull out his megaphone and in an act of defiance, give the mayor a piece of his mind.
"Your worm was nothing but a false idol, a usurper. You tried to lie to me and the wild Wimblers. We will not abide by this heresy."
The mayor, slightly shaken by this act of defiance, stood his ground, holding the worm out to Sloth.
Listen. Take the worm. We belong together. They were meant for each other.
Sloth's blood boiled.
"Nay, that worm's a dart!"
The mayor stepped back, frustrated at the lack of progress between the groups. "Alright, we're done here," he said, as he motioned to his escorts that they were leaving. He looked back at Sloth one final time. "But we will have that megaphone." Nothing in town felt right to Sloth after that meeting. In the following days, the police force would sneer at him and the Wimblers, and the town folk became distant. The feel of the town was no longer the same, as Sloth felt the gaze of cruel eyes upon him constantly. The Wimblers set up a mission to go collect supplies outside of town for their house. This, however, would not end well for him. While the Wimblers raided a lone island several hundred meters out from the shoreline, Sloth kept watch from afar, his gaze focused on the blind spots of the landmass that the other Wimblers could not see. As soon as Sloth took notice of a mild shuffling in the bushes behind him, he was hit over the head with a metal bat. He collapsed down, the pain radiating down his head and behind his eyes as he felt the skin above his lip become damp with the blood flowing out of his nose. He turned to face his attackers, clad in blue and white, the signature color of the Komarovo police force. They tied Sloth's ankles and wrists together and began to search his bag. Sloth's vision slowly began to cave as black engulfed the peripherals of his vision, and the last thing he saw was the police grabbing his megaphone. Sloth awoke the next day back in the Wimbler household, an immense pressure pushing out from behind his eyes as he took notice of the pain. A fellow Wimbler entered the room and explained to Sloth what had happened. By order of the mayor, the police force jumped Sloth for his megaphone outside of the Komarovo city limits, meaning that they could not be prosecuted under Chernoris law. In this instant, all of Sloth's pain faded away, replaced with the flames of anger. Komarovo was not the refuge that they had originally imagined it would be. It was their last beacon of hope, and Sloth refused to see it fall to corruption. Though still bedridden from his injuries, the other Wimblers consulted to dig up any dirt on the Komarovo government that they could. As it would turn out, one of the Wimblers had recently stumbled upon the fact that the Komarovo government was running an underground weed business, illegal under Chernoris law. This revelation could be enough to get the Chernoris governor involved. If they had the governor to side with them, the corrupt Komarovo regime would be done for. They needed evidence, however, so when they knew the mayor and his police force were on patrol, the Wimblers broke into the government building to find any evidence they could. What they found was several acres of a weed farm, undeniable evidence of the regime's underground drug operation. They took several pictures of the farm and extracted, leaving no trace of their presence. Immediately, the Wimblers sent this evidence to the governor's office, requesting the removal of the Komarovo mayor and his police force with this undeniable proof of corruption. After several days, a response was returned. The governor would not be taking any action against the Komarovo regime, as no wrongdoing was found. The corruption was greater than the Wimblers thought. It was at a state level. The Wimblers did not know what to do anymore. The government would not take any action against Komarovo and their corruption, and as it would turn out, the Wimblers were not the only ones who took issue with the regime. One Wimbler had been talking with the townfolk, and as it turns out, the Wimblers weren't the only victims of the corruption. Nearly all members of the small community had been victimized by the regime in one way or another, be it by intimidation or physical force. In fact, murmurs of an organized protest had been occurring amongst the town. Sloth, still recovering from his wounds, caught wind of this protest talk. The gears in his head began to turn as he realized this could be an opportunity to do something even greater. A protest itself couldn't bring the corrupt regime down. It would have to be something big. Something so great that the governor of Chernoris could not ignore it. As plans for the protest began to finalize, a final date and time were announced for the protest, September 1st, 2020, at 11 a.m., 5 days away. Sloth would bring fellow Wimblers Ringo, Double Dub, and Stealthy in for a private meeting, and between the four of them, they would devise a master plan. Ringo, I need you to make sure the protest is organized. Everyone needs to be in one group, but all of you need to keep your distance. Stay towards the outside of the group. Ensure that the camera is rolling, Stealthy. We cannot afford to lose this footage, Sloth explained. The Wimblers nodded, understanding the importance of their roles. Though shocked by the extremism of the plan, they understood why Sloth was doing what he was. Following the meeting, they went their separate ways, set out to ensure the success of the plan. Ringo would travel north to obtain materials for protest signs. Stealthy and Double Dub would assist the townfolk in making the final preparations for the protest. Sloth, however, would have a much more difficult task. He needed to find a way to not only break into the police building where the protest was happening, but hide there until the day of the protest. Fortunately, Ringo had previously found a hole in the back fence of the police building, leading to the unlocked back door. All Sloth had to do was wait for an opportune time to sneak in. After hours of waiting, The police went on town patrol, and Sloth made his move. Once in, he snuck to the police locker room and obtained a police outfit, as well as an AK-47 rifle, and made his way into the attic. He had made it, with roughly 36 hours to go before the protest was set to begin. All that was left was to wait and hope that Stealthy, Double Dub, and Ringo did their part. Komarovo would soon be liberated. Sloth checked his watch again. 10:54 a.m. Rain had begun pounding the roof of the police building, water dripping through the weakly reinforced attic ceiling. Sloth peeked out of the small attic window to the streets, observing the gathering protesters on the curb. He counted 8 in total and spotted 3 of his fellow Wimblers, Stealthy, Minnie, and Double Dub. However, Ringo was still nowhere to be seen, and none of the protesters had the signs that Ringo was supposed to get them. Sloth theorized that Ringo may have gotten caught in the storm north of Komarovo and had to take shelter. Disappointing, but understandable. Fortunately, the signs were not crucial to the plan. However, Sloth had hoped that Ringo would have been present to see the fruition of a revolution occur. He picked up his stolen police outfit and began to get dressed. It was time. Sloth opened the front door of the police building, the heavy wind blowing the rain directly into his outfit. He walked out, dressed in police uniform and armed with his rifle, and observed the situation. The protest was in full swing. The townsfolk's fists raised high into the air. Sloth made sure to identify all of his Wimblers before proceeding. He spotted Stealthy and Double Dub towards the outside of the group as requested. Minnie, however, was slightly closer to the middle of the group, which would cause issues for the plan. Nothing could be done about it, however. Whatever happened would happen.
If we rush him, he can't. He'll run out of bullets before he kills all of us.
Shouted a small British child in the protest. Sloth continued forward, being sure to keep his head down as to not be noticed by the police officer he would pass on his way towards the protesters.
Visitors' lives matter!
Shouted one of the protesters as Sloth took his final steps towards the group. He stopped in front of one of the protesters. The protester didn't know it, but he was about to become a catalyst to the liberation of Komarovo. In this moment, time stood still for Sloth as he stared into the eyes of the human in front of him. What Sloth was about to do would be considered barbaric, ruthless, and evil, but it was necessary. Did Sloth wish it had to come to this? Absolutely not. But the corruption and evil of the Komarovo regime forced his hand. Sloth's life was all but over. The rapid deterioration of his brain and internal hemorrhaging would soon kill him, but he'd be damned if the bastards that did this to him didn't answer for their sins. Sloth reached around his back and pulled his rifle from under his shoulder, grasping the grip with trembling hands. He took a deep breath and raised the gun.
The truth always wins.
Technically, if we rush him, he can't. He'll run out of bullets before he kills all of us.
We want our rights. We want our rights.
Shut up.
We want.
Visitors' lives matter! Visitors' lives matter!
Use this song.
Oh God! Oh Jesus! Oh my God! Run! Run! Stealthy, you look like an officer! Stealthy! Holy shit! Holy shit! God! Holy fuck! Oh. Guys, which one did you go into? I'm locking the door. No, let me in! Let me in! No! Get in! Get in the damn house, damn it! Oh my God, get inside! Oh, it's not letting me go in! Open it! Inside, damn it! Okay, close it and lock it! Holy shit, that man just gunned him down! Oh my God!
From everyone else's perspective, a Komarovo police officer just opened fire on a peaceful protest, killing one. He dropped the rifle and ran for his life to the north, fleeing the scene. The police, too shocked and confused by what had just happened, did not pursue him. As he ran into the hills, he realized that the plan had worked. It would not take long for news of this event to spread to the rest of Chernobyl, and the government would be forced to take down the corrupt regime of Komarovo. 2 days would pass, and Sloth had taken refuge in an abandoned gas station. He had not eaten in 4 days, and he knew death loomed for him. However, it was worth all that had occurred. Komarovo would be freed from the corrupt regime. Sloth was now a martyr, and his actions would resonate throughout the eons, and corruption would soon fall to the sword of justice. He did mourn the death of the protester's life that he took. However, he did not regret it. Sloth was certain that if the protester only knew what was at stake, what was actually occurring, he would have volunteered his life willingly. He noticed 2 cars approaching the gas station. The cars stopped, and 4 men exited from each vehicle, clad in blue and white, armed with rifles. Sloth knew this was the end. He pulled out his pistol and removed the magazine to find that 3 bullets remained. He loaded it back in and rose up. Sloth gritted his teeth and armed the pistol. He took a deep breath and raised the gun.